Hello, 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 and welcome to a sketchbook tour. Finally, it's been a while. I I have sketchbooks for different topics, so it takes forever to finish them. But we got this one done a couple weeks back, and is the brainstorming sketchbook that I started in January when I first started live streaming. So we're going to have a whole bunch of live stream type pics and or stuff that I did on stream, and then we'll get into some other stuff. So the first stream I was drawing my characters and explaining who they are. So that's Ricky B, the rock and roll rat. That's Noah Thorson from Noah's Archipelago and Noah's daughter Ursula. And the story that I started developing is one that will become a graphic novel, wherein Ursula hears about cheesy rats, which is the cartoon universe version of Chuck E. Cheese. They don't have one in her town. Ricky's never heard of it, but they end up going on a quest to find one. So we started off with brainstorming what the mascot would look like. So we got this rat character, and initially I was thinking if it would be animatronic, like, you know, back in the day, like long ago in the 70s and 80s. Chuck E. Cheese had animatronic rats and a band, and that was kind of I think kind of a thing. There were a bunch of restaurants that had those and arcades and stuff, so I was kind of drawing the mechanism for blinking eyeballs or whatnot, but I decided that it would end up being like a teenager in a costume. So then we've got a side view of costume mask. The head would be in here, and this all protrudes, and there's the logo. And there he is with the head off and the teenager inside, and the drawing of the tail would probably need to be secured this way, because even if you have an armature, it's eventually going to bend and do this. So if you want up, you kind of need like fishing line or something like that. And then this, I think, was from the second stream. And so again, reintroducing Ursula and Ricky. And then I had the idea that Ursula would be going and knocking on Ricky's door. Ricky lives with his mom, Mama Rat. So, and it was still in January. So the Ratteriff is the family name. The Ratteriff household has a wreath on the door, but it's got, instead of, you know, jingle bells or whatever, it's got plastic cheese wedges in with the greenery. So there's Ursula knocking on the door. And then Mama Rat, Ursula asks, can Ricky come out and play? And Ricky comes out and says, howdy, neighbor. Now, age-wise, Ricky's 23, Ursula's 8. Ricky kind of views her as it's the neighbor's kid, and he wants her to play with his nieces and nephew. His nieces and nephew, the twin girls are like 5, they're in kindergarten age, and then Marvin's a year younger. Marvin's 4. But then his girlfriend has a bunch of nieces and nephews and all this. So that's kind of Ricky's figuring that, you know, it would be good for the rat kids to play with Ursula. Plus, Ursula's dad, Noah, makes a lot of cookies, and Ursula really only likes chocolate chips, so sometimes she takes her cookies and she gives them to Ricky, or sells them to Ricky or whatever. So, you know, they have that kind of deal going too. Anyways, Ursula asks about, what do you know about cheesy rats? And he says, well, I like cheese and I am a rat. And then I started brainstorming scenes that could go in this graphic novel. So here they are. There is the cheesy rats. The big slide looks like a rat tail, but the rest of the place looks like a castle, and there's going to be an arcade inside and all this. Kind of the plot that I'm working on right now for the graphic novel is going to be something about they round up a posse, Ursula's friends and Ricky's nieces and his nephew, and then his girlfriend's nieces and nephews, and they all go off in search of the cheesy rats. Anyways, they're clearly very impressed. And it looks like they got there first thing in the morning. So there may be like some camping and all that sort of involved. Because it doesn't look like there's anyone there. And then they come in, and here's the teenager in the costume. who was not expecting to meet a giant talking rat. This was not in the training manual. Ursula, right to the point, though. She wants to know if the manager knows if Cheesy Rats does hostile takeovers of school cafeterias. Ricky's just like super impressed because he's heard so many cool things about Cheesy Rats. And then this must have been another stream. Again, we have a drawing of Ursula and a drawing of Ricky that I must have done at the beginning. And then this stream was one, I think this was the only drawing I did the whole stream. So Ricky's girlfriend, Baby, she wears high heels a lot. She's not going walking or, on a long day-long walk. So if she was going to come along, she was insisting that Ricky pull her along in the little pedal cart, or pedal cab, whatever you want to call it. And Ursula isn't wearing high heels, but she is lazy. So Ursula has managed to get herself in the pedal cab next to Baby, and then the idea would be that the posse of kids, human kids and rat kids, would be back there somewhere, kind of trailing behind. There's Cheesy Rats off in the distance, but it doesn't look like any of these guys have actually seen it yet or noticed it. Next stream, I guess, I'm just guessing based on every time I drew their heads. Ursula, Ricky, and this is Miles, who is Baby's cousin, and Miles is half mouse, half rat. There's other videos, like I've done a whole bunch. I'm working on a book called Miles Marv's Pursuit of Happiness, so there are a whole bunch of streams, work on pages for that and whatnot. So anyways, Miles turns up a lot, and I could see Miles ending up in the story somehow. I have a few ideas of how, but don't want to give spoilers away. Plus, I haven't written the script of the graphic novel yet. I'm going to actually be doing that over the summer, because the Tuesday night videos, I thought I was done with cast portraits for Noah's Archipelago for the first Noah book, and then I got the, the InDesign, the book layout done, and I was like, oh, right, I forgot. And there's like 7 drawings I need to do, so I will do those 7 for the next 7 Tuesdays, 1 per week on pre-recorded video, and hopefully by then I will be ready to start working on doing a page a week, or posting a page a week for Cheesy Rats. So there's another story I'm thinking of doing as well, but I think it's probably going to be Cheesy Rats will be the first one that gets done, and do things out of order. Anyways, here they are at the arcade, playing games inside the Cheesy Rats. Ricky's playing the basketball arcade game. Ursula is doing target practice. And it looks like there's an attendant, or maybe that's Ricky, I can't tell. They have mouse ears, or rat ears, so could be a rat, could be one of the rat kids from the posse, I don't know. But Ursula's trying to win herself a teddy bear, which is also a nod to an ongoing joke in Noah's Archipelago, where every time there's a fall fair, she insists, even though she has like a dozen teddy bears, she insists on her dad going to the midway and trying to win her another one. And then if he does, she critiques that it's kind of small and if he practiced harder. Anyway, so I have her practicing. She's completely missing the target. And then we've got Miles. Miles is gambling with that's Marvin, Ricky's nephew, and that's Susie and Sherry, or Sherry and Susie. I forget which one is supposed to be which. The twin nieces of Ricky. And they're playing blackjack, and Miles looks like he's winning. He's saying, hit me. Marvin figures it's his turn, which means Miles is probably about to get bitten, because Marvin tends to bite when he gets mad. Anyways, then I decided, because by that point I knew that the Cheesy Rats was going to be a graphic novel, and I also knew that I had other stuff I had to finish before starting it, so I kind of set that aside. And then I started doing a handful of kind of brainstorming, random work, random brainstorming on streams for Tuesday night. So this one is kind of a circus-themed one. So Ursula is busy watching cartoons while training the lions, which is probably a really good way to get mauled. But anyways, Ricky is terrified of cats, even little house cats. even ones that are, you know, he's like 5'11", but he's still terrified of all cats, let alone a big lion, so he can't watch. Miles is kind of, I could do that. Very loose kind of work, because the idea was coming up with ideas that would later develop into more finished drawings. Who knows, at some point there may be a graphic novel about these guys at the circus. I haven't decided yet. Ricky, well, I don't think this is at the circus. I think this is on the way home. But he's doing the roadside sobriety test and imagining himself walking a tightrope as he does that. Miles, I just picture Miles having an attack elephant and then being furious about being stuck in traffic and trying to get the elephant to run over people's cars or at least down in between the lanes. Here, the elephant's kind of not having any of Miles's bullshit and is about to, well, is in the process of soaking him. And here we have Ricky again. This time he's on the tightrope, but he's reminding himself, you got this, just like the roadside test. And there's Ursula again with the lions. For her next trick, she will have the lions eat her homework. The lions are kind of, this one's having kind of an existential crisis. Join the circus, they said. It'll be fun, they said. This guy does want to be in show business. He's pissed that his buddy is sulking. Meanwhile, the tiger is more pragmatic. I told him we should eat the kid, but nope, they want to be in showbiz. Well, if you're going to be the lion tamer, what do you got to do? You're also taking care of the lions. This is the part of the job that Ursula did not sign up for. And she's saying, stupid ringmaster. Well, who's the ringmaster? Well, that would be Miles. But Ursula figures she's going to have a coup and replace him with a more pliable ringmaster, one that does chores at her house. So her dad, Noah. And Miles isn't having this usurpation. Miles is not tolerating having his role usurped. So he tells him to get out of there, which means that then Ursula's not going to have to clean the lion cages anymore. And then the next stream was kind of centered around superheroes. And so there's Miles as Batmouse. He is half rat and half mouse, but he kind of identifies more with the rat side, with the mouse side, even though size-wise he's a hulking giant compared to the other mice people. You know, you think of the size difference between a mouse and a rat. In fact, in the real world, rats eat mice. In this world, that's kind of a little too horrifying to deal with, so we just have it that the mice get drunk on Friday nights and go, or the rats get drunk on a Friday night and go beat the crap out of mice in Mouston, called Mouston Mayhem, so they act like thugs, but they're not actually eating them, they're just drunk hooligans. Anyways, so there's Miles's Batmouse. This ended up sparking, I've only done 1 or 2 pages from it, but a little side quest kind of comic where Ricky and Miles get into a bar fight over whether this character is called Bat Rat or Batmouse. So anyways, I think there's some sketches from that coming up pretty quick. So, and then we've got Marvin as Spider-Wat. And Ricky way down there, trying to figure out how the hell he's going to get Marvin down without getting yelled at by Mama Rat. Ricky likes to do some street racing here and there, and drive like a lunatic in general, so he's dressed up as the Flash. It didn't really work out for him, though. Here I'm calling it the Volkswagen Rabbit. Ricky does drive a 1983 Volkswagen Rabbit. Although in the graphic novels, when it's actually referred to, I think it's going to be called a Ratswagen Rabbit. You know, copyright, all that sort of stuff. And then Ursula as Wonder Woman, and she's got the lasso of truth, or lariat of truth, whatever it's called. And she's trying to find out why she can't have chocolate for dinner. And Noah's telling her, it's because your mommy says so. I would totally let you have candy for dinner. I'm irresponsible like that. Ask your brothers. She has 2 brothers. So Noah is on his wife Ruth. It was actually his 5th wife because he had a few failed marriages in his 20s. This one's the one that'll last. But anyways, Ruth and Noah have Ursula, and then they have the baby Valerie. But from the failed marriages, when Noah was in his 20s, he has 2 adult sons, one from his first wife, Gigi, or Jillian, and that's Adam. And Adam was a surprise homecoming game baby. Well, that's when the conception happened anyways. And then a few years later, after Gigi and Noah got divorced, then Noah ended up knocking up a waitress from his favorite dive bar, married her, and that's his son Duke. So anyways, that's why he's saying ask your brothers. But now, then the next stream I did was cartoon sports ball. So they're brainstorming their different favorite sports, and Noah is obsessed with roller skating. That kind of came out, I think, probably the year before, but there was, yeah, I think it was last year where Noah was on a quest to get Ursula to pick a sport because Ruth wanted Ursula to have a sport. And then Noah got sidetracked by remembering how much he liked roller skating as a kid. And then, anyways, so he's thinking of roller skates. Ursula is really into, I guess that would eventually become competitive shooting, but you know, she's 8, so it's a super soaker. But she's looking to ruin her father's good hair day, waiting for the wind to be just right. And then Ricky's into competitive eating, and Miles is being a jerk and telling him that competitive eating isn't a real sport. Ricky's not convinced of this, though. He's pretty sure that it is, and he's training hard. Now, Miles's idea of a sport. I'm just gonna flip that over because that's half the book now. We're going quick, sort of. You know, Miles is from an Ivy League kind of school. His dad had money. Anyways, his dad's a self-made man and sent Miles to the finest of schools, and that would be Mouseford, you know, Mouston's version of Harvard. And I thought, what sport would Miles like? Probably stuff like sailing and rowing, you know, IB, you know, rich dude kind of sports. And also, he likes to yell at people. Well, what's the one way that you can get a gold medal for screaming at someone? Well, that would be being the coxswain in a rowing team. You don't do any rowing. Well, I mean, coxswains usually are rowers, I assume, normally. But for whatever reason, they've got the gig to stand or sit at the front of the boat and just scream at their team. So there's Miles being the coxswain and calling them idiots and all this. I had in a different sketchbook, not on stream, I had a whole bunch of like quick and dirty little pen sketches of Miles doing that. They throw him in the water. I mean, it is tradition that if you win the race, you throw the coxswain in the water. Apparently, they didn't win this race. They just had enough of Miles and tossed him. But there he is. Ricky then, not really a proper sport, although, I mean, I guess tobogganing sort of is a sport, but he's tobogganing on a rusty old car hood. You know, Ricky's a simple rat. It don't take much to make him happy. So, and a rare shot of Ricky actually wearing a top underneath his jacket. So he's got one of his Christmas sweaters that his grandma made him. So there he is. And then we have Baby and Noah's wife Ruth. They're going to play tennis. Well, Baby's taking a whole bunch of tennis court selfies first. So, you know, who knows? Their booking on the tennis court may be up before Baby's done with her selfies, but, you know, she's got to post on Instarat. Ruth is getting annoyed. She actually wants to play. And then here we have some of the brainstorming from that bar fight. So Ricky just keeps saying, bat rat, bat rat. And Miles is losing his shit. It's going, I said his name is Batmouse. Bat rat. When I said I did some pages, I meant like I actually started to ink, you know, with the dip pen and whatnot, detailed drawings of the bar. I think I only got 1, maybe 2 of those done. But anyways. And there Miles is in the costume. Do I look like an effing rat to you? This is Batmouse. And Ricky says, nah, that's a kid-sized bat rat costume, which is probably actually true because Miles is head and shoulders above all the other mice. So there wouldn't be, because of the fact that he's half rat, so there probably wouldn't be a bat mouse costume that size, but he is the size of a, adolescent, teenager, younger teenager, like 12, 13, 14-ish, before the final growth spurt rat. So, probably Ricky's correct, and it actually is a kid-sized bat rat costume. This guy in the background is just, he's seen superheroes. He's pretty sure he's had enough to drink. And then we have some random little doodles in here. Old hippie lady dancing to the jukebox. One guy passed out on the floor, another guy just kind of sitting there, This guy, Miles has hit him over the head with a bottle. The boss ain't never going to believe I got hit by Batmouse. And then he's tossing a bottle at Ricky when Ricky's not looking. Of course, see, the problem with throwing a bottle at Ricky's head, especially from the back, is Ricky idolizes Sid Vicious, which means that he wants to have the same spiky hairdo as Sid Vicious, which means he uses a lot of hairspray. A lot. Which is to say he kind of has a built-in helmet. So it just goes bonk and then bounces off. I mean, he kind of says, ow, hey, but I mean, it doesn't really connect to his skull. It just thunks the helmet hair and rolls off. Anyways, Ricky's a little pissed. He's normally pretty tolerant of Miles's BS, especially because Ricky's of the opinion that, happy wife, happy life, and this is his girlfriend's cousin. So, someday Miles is going to be his family too. So he's got to be nice to Miles, but every so often Miles does something that pisses him off. So there he is. He's grabbing Miles by the cape, and then he's going to give Miles a wedgie, which I think is what that was supposed to kind of demonstrate. And then the next stream was kind of, not getting back to the circus thing, but kind of a zoo, so kind of parallel. So there's Miles. Miles is a little bit, because he lives in Ratsville now, so he's gone from being the big hulking tall bully to being smaller than everybody else, and it's kind of giving him a complex. So he's standing on the back of this giraffe saying, now who's taller? And Ricky points out that the giraffe is. Meanwhile, we have kind of a running gag where Noah's having to clean up messes, including poop scoop. This is why Ursula doesn't have any pet cats or dogs, because Noah doesn't want to do that. He's cleans up enough crap with the baby's diapers. But there's been a couple cartoons I've drawn where Noah is stuck with the shovel having to clean up poop, and in this case, it's giraffe poop. There's one in the... it'll be at the introduction or preface to the first Noah's Archipelago comics treasury, the one that I'm working on in the book layout in InDesign right now. And in that one, the cartoonist, yours truly, grants Ursula her wish to have a pet T-Rex. And of course, what's Noah doing? Cleaning up T-Rex poop. So, anyways, and we go. Here's Baby's talking about the cute panda. Miles comments that he's wearing almost as much makeup as Baby. And then we've got the cheesy little... and then we've got a cheesy little pun of Mayberline. Ursula tries yet again to get a lion to eat her math homework. This lion ain't doing that either. Now then, I think this got set aside. Those were probably in February, I want to say. Maybe I'm wrong. But then in March, we kind of have had a little bit of a gag in the Noah's Archipelago webcomic. Now, I'm not doing it as a webcomic anymore. I'm going to be doing graphic novels with those characters, and then just posting a page or two a week. But anyways, there was a little recurring joke about... and also my sketchbooks, not just this one and other ones, about Ursula trying to catch a leprechaun because, after all, the adults keep telling her she needs to think about what job she's going to have when she grows up to earn a living. She doesn't want a job. She just wants to watch cartoons all day. She also draws her own cartoons, but mostly she wants to watch them. So she has to figure out what she's going to do about money. And it occurred to her that if she captured and enslaved a leprechaun, leprechauns have pots of gold and they manifest pots of gold. So if you have a leprechaun in a little terrarium, in theory, every day the leprechaun can give you a gold coin, and then you use that to pay your bills and you never have to have a real job. Anyways, so she was trying to catch a leprechaun. And here we have her actually finding a leprechaun, and the leprechaun ain't having any of her BS. So, and then here we have the roots of current project of mine, which is the Noah Thorson's Book of Days. It started out as a 2027 Noah's Archipelago calendar. And that started out with a stream where I was brainstorming. So what ended up happening is I got about halfway through drawing the pages, also on my Tuesday live streams before I started doing them as pre-recorded. And then I thought, why don't, instead of doing a calendar every year, why don't I make one bigger, longer lasting evergreen project? And that's the Book of Days. So anyways, this is the start of that. For 2027, Easter is in March, so Noah, if he's posing for the calendar picture, he has to decide if he wants to dress up as an Easter bunny or as a leprechaun. So we have a few different varieties of this. The one where he's kind of torn into, another version of the torn into. In the end, what I did was based on this, which is Noah wears his Easter bunny costume under his leprechaun costume and combines elements of both. And there is a guy, like a video recap sort of guide, project tour, whatever you want to call it, for the first 12, like the monthly illustrations for Noah Thorson's Book of Days. So you can see that. And when you do watch that video, you will notice that this is not what I went with for the April calendar, which was going to be Noah. So these are Noah's in-laws, Ruth's parents, Agnes and Frank. And the idea is they have a large property, like, I don't know, half acre, acre, something like that, in Oak Bay, Victoria, which is like the really wealthy area of Victoria. But they have a guest house. Ruth moved, so main house, circular driveway, guest house. And Ruth moved into the guest house when she turned 18 as her little, I'm independent now. And then, you know, that's where she was living. So when she and Noah got married, Noah moved in. And that's now where Noah and Ursula and Ruth and the baby, anyways, that's where they live. In between the two is a pool. But this was all lawn at one point, and Agnes just loved her big lawn. Frank grew up on a farm, though, and he wanted to retire to a farm, and Agnes won't let him because she's a socialite and she likes being in the city, or, 20-minute drive from the city, etc. So Frank conspires with Noah to kind of slowly terraform this lawn. It started with a chicken run and some fruit trees, a little orchard here. And there's actually probably start with the vegetable beds and then the chicken run and orchard and, and then there's going to be a hoop house. And eventually the lawn's kind of all going to be gone. But, and Agnes is furious. So this is going to be a scene of Agnes looking over and there's all these daffodils coming up in the lawn, which pisses her off. Not that she doesn't like daffodils, but daffodils belong in a vase, not in the lawn, right? Frank is doing this thing he always does, which is pretending that this was Thorson's idea. And Thorson, Noah puts up with that because then he gets his garden beds and whatnot, and Agnes doesn't like him anyways, so, why not conspire with his father-in-law? Anyways, in what I actually did for the thing is Noah singing in the rain for April. And then Noah taking a selfie in the garden. And this is also one that didn't actually happen. for Valentine's Day. They're trying to have a romantic dinner after Ursula's been sent up to bed. But Ursula can smell chocolate a mile away. So she's about to be running down those stairs in her nightie with her favorite stuffed animal, Mr. T-Rex, and she is going to be looking for that chocolate cake and demanding a part of it. So Noah's probably not getting lucky. Anyways. And then the January brainstorming, where Ursula's building a snowman. Now, in Victoria, BC, I don't think ever on record there was anything about Victoria having a snowfall big enough that she could have made a snowman that big and not seen, the lawn. Usually even when they have like, lots of snow in Victoria by Victoria standards, I go down there the next day, the roads are all clear, the lawns are patchy, and the snowmen are, a foot and a half tall. Each ball is about like this maybe because, there just isn't much snow. But it's the cartoon universe, so we have like a once in a millennium level of snowfall in order to make the joke. And then brainstorming for June, the last day of school, Ursula doing her Braveheart thing. She didn't watch the movie, obviously, because the bell's ringing. She's now free. She kind of got it all mixed up. But anyways, and then her teacher also can't wait to be rid of him. July, Noah, again, doing a costume combo. It's part Uncle Sam and part Canadian Beaver. And 100% not what he's going to be allowed to wear wear outside of the house. And then August, Ursula doing her super soaker sniper thing again. Well, Noah kind of has a beer and is in his pool floaty, kind of half dozing off, which you really don't think you're supposed to do that in a pool. Don't fall asleep in the floaty. But anyways. And then September, Ursula's in mourning. There's a cartoon of her older brother, Adam, the goth DJ. Sketch for Trick or Treat, where Ursula has done a bait and switch. She's told her father she was going to go trick-or-treating as a dairy farmer, so she needed a moo cow so people would know what kind of farmer she's being. And then at the last minute, she whipped out this chariot and toga, and she's a Roman charioteer and making him pull her so she can get her candy without actually having to get any exercise. And then this is an illustration of, that's actually for, now we're getting into stuff where it's like one-offs from when I was doing other streams and kind of drawing stuff. This one was explaining, I think, for one of the coloring books that I'm working on, wherein I will have the main illustration that you color on this side, and then I have a story going through. So it's not just random images, they kind of have a flow to them. Because, often you don't want to put a back-to-back image on your coloring book because if someone uses a marker, it'll bleed through and all that, right? But rather than leave the space blank, I'm having a story. It's going to be short, so it's not going to like fill the whole page, but like a large type and all that. So I think I was illustrating that. Somebody in the chat asked me to draw the Brazil flag, and a couple random. We've got Miles, we've got Ricky. What the hell that was supposed to be? Teddy bear or something maybe. Noah, Ricky again, and then another of my characters, Zamo, the iguana character from Zamo the Destroyer. Zamo looks down upon mammals, be they rats or humans. Zamo probably can't really tell the difference, or chooses not to tell the difference anyways. So there we go. Somebody in the chat had asked me to draw a fish. At this point, I'm only doing 2 live streams a week for the rest of the summer, and any other videos I post will be pre-recorded. So my live streams now are Friday for Ricky B Goes to Sea and the Saturday recap. And my policy, I've talked about this on other videos, so I'm not going to get into it too much, but my policy going forward is if you ask me to draw something and I'm in the middle of work that I'm trying to do on like the graphic novel that I want to get finished this year, you're going to have to wait till the end. It's like when I finish the pages that I want to get inked, then I will look at what the requests in the live chat were. So I guess you better watch till the end if you want to see your thing. And depending what it is, if it's something I really don't know how to draw, the answer is no. But anyways, I do know how to do. I can draw fish, so I did draw at that point. And then somebody else had asked about like a candy house, so I drawn that. Got a couple of people asked me to write their names, so I'm just gonna skip over that. I mean, I left it in the stream, I didn't edit it out. Somebody else asked, can you draw my favorite rapper, Rick Ross? So there we go. I've never drawn Rick Ross before, so that was a very quick, like, Google, what does the dude even look like? And super rough sketch. And that's the other thing when somebody asks for a request. It's like, I can't guarantee I'm going to do a good job of it, right? But I've never seen the person before. Like, I know some artists are really good at, like, caricature, where it's like, on the fly, have a look at somebody, and then they draw right that. That's not how my best drawings come out. So anyways. And then these were from July 4th. And I think this closes out. There's only a couple pages left. So they're with Ricky, not so much in the graphic novels, but before I was doing longer pieces with Ricky, I was doing one-off cartoons, like once a week or whatever, and on some special holidays. So it was kind of a recurring thing where he would be asking Miles to help him hold up, say, the Canadian flag to wish people a happy Canada Day, or wanting to hold up a flag, his boss, holding up the American flag to wish his boss Happy America Day. His boss isn't, they don't even live in Canada or the US. What it is they live in a country called the United States of Cheese. Originally, Ratland is one of the states, Mouseland is another, and then there's like 7 others like Cheesevo and Radabama and Mouseroon. Anyways, there's a whole thing there, and I was going to try and have it where it was like in between the States and Canada, and exiting out like in the Pacific Northwest, or maybe on the other side of the Rockies, kind of going towards the Great Lakes. And I was just like, yeah, because it's a weird thing with the Ricky comic, because he also talks about characters going to Los Angeles to work, or going to Hawaii, other real world places. I think I decided that what would make the most sense is, in our planet, we have the giant-ass Pacific Ocean, and most of it is empty, so why don't we just say that in the rat world, there's a big old continent in the middle of there, kind of like Australia, but not Australia, in between Australia and the United States. That's where this giant island is, and then their state, and that's, the island became the United States of Cheese, and the mice and the rat people live there, but they can travel. Anyways, I haven't fully fleshed out that geography, but anyways, Ricky does like, he's a happy dude. He likes wishing people happy holidays for whichever holiday. So here he is with the American flag. Noah also likes all sorts of holidays. Obviously, Independence Day is a real holiday. Noah also likes fake holidays like National Peach Cobbler Day, which is the whole premise for Noah Thorson's Book of Days that I'm working on. But also Noah's kind of a bit of a snob about Ricky. And I guess a bit of a germaphobe, because he's thinking the rat is touching this, is he going to get hantavirus from handling it? Now, the other thing that should be noted, the cheesy rat thing is going to be, there's been generally speaking, the Noah world and the Ricky world and the Zama world are 3 completely separate places. But I also, because of my sketchbooks and whatnot, I've kind of got a bit of a thing where they interact, that after all, they do all live within the cartoonist's brain. So they're all neighbors in that sense. So you get these 2 interacting that way. But for actual projects, there was a bit of a crossover towards the end of Noah's Archipelago, because the cheesy rats thing came in there where it was one of her homework assignments. And then at the end, you know, she did a presentation and was talking about her friend Ricky, and Ricky's a rat, and Ricky has this opinion about blah, 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 blah. And then her teacher kind of snitches because Noah's wife, Ruth, Ursula's mom, is also a teacher, but second grade as opposed to third grade. Ursula's in third grade. Anyways, it comes back to Noah about Ursula having, you know, and talking about the rats and all this, and Ruth's all freaked out because there are no rats in my house, you know, because she's thinking pest rats, right? Anyways, then Noah is tasked with telling Ursula that Ricky's not real, you know, and blah, blah, blah. And then at the end, Ursula goes to try and trap. Anyways, this stuff's going to end up in the cheesy rats, but obviously because I've had some of the main beats of that story already posted in Noah's Archipelago, it's not up on the Noah's Archipelago website. And actually, I'm probably going to be pulling comics off of that and just having it kind of like a book sales on the site. I don't know. But on the Noah's Archipelago Facebook page, you can dig through there and the photos and whatnot. But like the main overall arch of what happens with her school project, because the Cheesy Rats is part of the school project, that's already been put out. But that's going to be like bookends of the story when they go on adventure. Like the main, it'd be kind of like a coda where she goes and she has her presentation about to her class about cheesy rats, and then the stuff with Noah telling her Ricky's not real, and then at the end, you know, he sees Ricky and then he wonders what the hell his bandmate Howie put in the brownies that jammed last night, whatever. But that's kind of, it's kind of like an epilogue and a prologue, but the actual book is going to be about Ricky and Ursula and the posse all going to find cheesy rats. And anyways, that's the stuff I'm writing, but blah, blah, blah. Point is, Noah's being kind of a snob about Ricky. And actually, some of the coloring books, as I'm working on coloring books, which I don't really, I've got one Noah's Jobs, or the A to Z of Noah's job history, that hopefully be out the end of this year. But I have a couple others that will have Ricky and Noah and Ursula and those characters all interacting in a coloring book, but that's kind of, technically speaking, it's not canon or whatever, to the extent that that matters. Anyways, that's a whole long ass blathering about that one drawing. Here we have Miles and Ursula, and because Independence Day was on Saturday, Miles is going, I'm glad this doesn't affect the stock market. I'm sure it did on Monday. I would assume the New York Stock Exchange takes Monday off when there's a big holiday on the weekend, just like in Canada, the Toronto Stock Exchange takes Monday off if there's a holiday on the weekend. Anyways, he's glad that it didn't affect his stocks. Ursula, she's pissed it was on the weekend because it means that she didn't get out of school. He points out she doesn't have school in July anyways. And she's like, I know, like they need to move it so that it would get her out of math class. Anyways, and then I have a note to myself to make some character guide videos talking who's who, which that I've been wanting to do that for a while. So it probably won't happen until like maybe the fall, where I'll have like a video a week of meet so-and-so and then like a profile on that character. And anyways, that's down the road. And that is the last page in the book. So that was my little brainstorming video. Let's find. There's something about the giraffe thing that I just love. So we'll leave it on that for a sec. So, oh yeah, I always forget because I'm pre-recording. I can do this. I have other things. So if you like this video and you want to see more of my work, do subscribe, please. And where is I have it? Thanks for watching still. There we go. There's Noah and Ursula and Ricky and Miles. And what I will leave you guys with in the little show outro is the playlist Live Drawing with Pura, so you can watch the actual streams as I did this and get a feel for, projects that came out of this book will all be on that playlist. Well, at least the ones I was live streaming about. Anyways, thanks for watching. See you again real soon. Bye for now.